Hi everyone, welcome back to the Walkers About YouTube channel. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. In early May, our friend John Arenz came to visit to run some trails in Sand Hollow. During one of the trails, the Jeep experienced a no start. What follows in this video is his explanation of the no start and what he found as the cause. Hope you enjoy the video.
Hi everybody. Hey, I'm here to talk about what happened on Papa Smurf the other day where my Jeep had a crank no start on Papa Smurf. I was on an easy part of the trail and hit my right rocker on a rock and the Jeep quit running, and we messed around with it for probably 20 minutes there and then towed it out. The tow out was easy, luckily, and thanks very much to all of you guys for helping me out there. But let's talk about why I did it. So it had a U1403 code, which is implausible fuel data. So the ECU saw data from the fuel pump that was implausible. So I assumed it was a fuel problem. We checked for physical damage there at Papa Smurf. We linked the positive and negative together for a reset. That didn't start it, so we towed it out. Okay, so I towed it all the way home. I was busy with some stuff for a while, and a couple of days ago I got after it in my shop. So first I checked for fuel pump activation on crank, and the fuel pump would activate for about 2 seconds on crank and then shut off. So that's an ECM thing, I think, but to confirm that, I pulled the ECM plug and found the fuel pump relay activation lead with some help from some wiring diagrams, connected it to positive and activated the fuel pump relay in the TIPM, and it came on, and I got 62 PSI at 12.4 volts back probed at the fuel pump. So that means the fuel pump relay, and let's talk about that for a second. The fuel pump relay, and the fuel pump positive lead are good. We know and the ground is good. We know the fuel pump positive lead and the ground are good because it made pressure at 12.4 volts. Okay, the fuel pump relay in all of these 3.6 pentastars is internal to the TIPM, meaning inside the TIPM, not a relay that you can plug and unplug in the top, soldered onto the TIPM board. So you can't service it or check it except by following leads out and checking in there. Keep that in mind. Anyway, keep that in mind for not for this, but for future problems. Anyway, this confirms it's not a fuel problem. It's an electrical problem because the fuel pump can make fuel pressure just fine and the wiring is good. It's got to be something else. Okay, so I looked at the wiring diagram. For those of you who don't know, for $20 a year, actually $20 a month, $59 a year, you can get a service called All Data, and All Data will let you look, as a do-it-yourselfer, will let you look at wiring diagrams and diagnostic stuff and torque specs, and very, very useful. So went on All Data, printed all the wiring diagrams, brought it down to my shop and started looking at it. So since I know now it's electrical, we're going to start with injectors and coils. The injectors and coils are fed by an ASD circuit. ASD stands for automatic shutdown. Automatic shutdown circuits are designed for two things. If there's a throttle position sensor, throttle pedal position sensor malfunction, and the Jeep wildly accelerates, it'll shut down on purpose to keep you from just running into crap or keep the Jeep from driving away at idle or whatever. Remember that crazy Toyota problem? They're trying to prevent that. It also shuts down if there's improper cam-crank correlation. So it watches the cam position sensor, watches the crank position sensor, and if they go out of whack, if they're not, if the correlation isn't correct between the two, it shuts down the ASD circuit in order to stop feeding positive voltage to the coils and injectors so that you don't, an interference problem doesn't wreck your motor. Okay, so I'm looking at the ASD circuit which is in these Pentastars is tan with a white stripe wire. As soon as I look at it, I figure out right away it's got no power, and I go and look, and the ASD fuse is blown. Okay, so I pull the ASD fuse, put in another one, it pops that. So then I put a fuse saver on it, which is like a circuit breaker for a fuse, so I don't have to keep replacing fuses. And I started looking around at stuff, and I figured out pretty quickly that the ASD lead, the brown and white that runs from the tan and white stripe that runs from the ECM out to the ASD out to the ASD fuse and to the ASD relay is grounded somewhere. Okay, it's grounded. We've got a short circuit. Cool, let's find it. So I took it apart to check to make sure it wasn't a bad coil. All of those were 0.7 to 0.8 ohms, so no short there, and I kept them disconnected. Same thing with the injectors, all 12.1 to 12.8 ohms, all good. Kept those disconnected, and now with all those disconnected, my short to ground is gone. Well, hooray. I don't know what's fixed it, but something's fixed it. So I put it all back together, and as soon as I did, it blew the ASD fuse, and we're back to square one. Took it apart again, and this time I took it all apart, and then I left all the coils and injectors unplugged, so they weren't plugged in, and then I started putting it back together. Because now I'm thinking it's in the wiring harness, and something's pushing on the wiring harness somewhere when it's getting reassembled to cause this problem. So what I did was I connected tone to the tan with white stripe wire, so that if it went to ground, it would start making tone in my multimeter. And I'd check it every once in a while, make sure it was still doing that, and then put it back to where it was. And I started reassembling it. When I started reassembling it, I'm turning around on purpose here. You know what? I forgot to go get a stool, and I'm going to go do that. When I started reassembling it, I was waiting to hear that tone, because I knew as soon as I heard that tone, I would find the problem. So here's what I found. My chair. I'm going to flip this around, I think, if I can figure out how. Come on. Oh, I can't figure out how once it started. That's interesting. Okay, so we're just going to flip the phone over. So this is the motor. And what are we looking at there? There we go. Okay, so this is the motor, and this is a wiring harness, and this are the heater hoses on the right side of the motor. So this is cylinder 1, cylinder 3, cylinder 5. If you look closely, right here, let me see if I can get over there, right there. If you look closely, you can see the number 3 coil. And if you're looking at the number 3 coil, you can also see that the number 3 coil has a plug in it right there. And you can see this piece of metal right here. This piece of metal is a bridge, and it's a bridge that holds this above this assembly, heater hose assembly, above the valve cover, and it also has a bracket to hold this wiring harness. Well, that bridge across there was pushing on the top of this plug right at that coil wire, and was actually breaching it. And you couldn't really see it because the breach was so small. So I took it apart, and I figured out that that bridge had been bent probably when they did the motor on it a couple of months ago, and that a little edge of it was touching the wire, and it made essentially a knife cut in that wire. And when I reassembled, when I would tighten down these screws right here, and these these screws right here. And when I tighten down the screws down there that held it to the exhaust manifold, that bridge would cut into the wire and ground it and cause the ASD circuit to blow. Apparently when I hit that bump was the last straw, and the ASD circuit was permanently connected to ground on that bridge. But as soon as I took the motor apart to look at stuff, the ground problem would go away and you couldn't see the slice in the wire. So I have about probably 14, 18 hours in this thing trying to figure out what the problem is. Diagnostically, kind of a pain in the ass. But the reason I'm telling you guys this is because you guys all have these motors. You all have this ASD circuit that drives the coils and the injectors. And you probably also all have that bridge piece on there. And the bridge piece is in danger of cutting the brown with white stripe ASD wire and causing this problem. Put it all back together, cleared the codes, and it still has the engine lope, and I still have to address that with Chrysler, but the electrical problem's gone. So there you go. And there went 11 minutes and 10 seconds of your life too, but hopefully you learned something.